Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first panel, Where Can I Go with a Music Degree? Our first panel, though, is actually just titled, Where Can I Go with a Music Education? We're going to get right into it. My name is Dr. Amy Hillis. I'm coming at you from Toronto at York University. But I am also an alum of NYO Canada, who is our partner this year for this series. And I want to just start by giving a big shout out to NYO Canada for their support in making this series possible. Big shout out to all of you for also attending, for being here today, bright and early, especially those of you on the West Coast this Saturday morning. Thanks for being here. Our website is going to be posted in the chat if it is not already. It will be there a few times throughout today's session. Please do check out that website. That's where you'll find all the information on all our panels. We have two more after today. And that is also where you will find some information about recordings of these discussions if you missed anything, and if you want more information on our panelists. So that is what I am going to introduce now. We have three fantastic panelists today. I am first going to introduce Dr. Marshall Gayman coming at us from the West Coast. Marshall, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, everyone.
Next up, we have Rauben. Rauben Labovitz is also joining us from Toronto. Rauben is a realtor in Toronto. Hi, Rauben.
Morning, Amy. Morning, everyone.
Thanks for being here. And last but not least, from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, we have Katie Newman. Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for being here.
Morning, everyone.
Katie, it looks like you're in your office on a Saturday morning. We're
I
very
am.
honored, but man, I hope you get a bit of a break after this. So I want the panelists to have their own opportunity to introduce themselves. As I say, there's lots of detail on our website about exactly the names of the organizations, the firms, the hospitals that they're working for. So feel free to check that out. But I want to leave it to our panelists. So starting with Dr. Marshall Gayman. Marshall and I, by the way, went to school together at McGill University in music, and we can get into that later. But Marshall, tell us what you're doing now.
Yeah, definitely. So very grateful for the invitation to be a part of the panel with everybody here. I'm a resident doctor, so I'm still in training in the adult neurology program out at UBC. I'm in my fourth year of a 5-year program, and then I'll be nearing like independent practice after that. Um, yeah, my path here, there certainly was not a straight path. I wasn't someone who necessarily set out to become a doctor from a young age. Did multiple different jobs and careers kind of along the way. One of those is as Amy said, I'm also a tuba player. So I did my undergrad in music performance at McGill, with the late Dennis Miller. And so grateful for my time there. I was also a musician in the Army for nearly a decade. And I was a tuba player with NYO in 2011 and 2012. And so um, I'll leave it at that for now. I think I'm happy to like fill in more of the background later too if there's other specific questions. But
Well, congrats for almost being done your residency,
oh,
Marshall.
thank you.
And we're so privileged to have you here today. Thank you again for joining us. Reuben, what is it that you're up to now?
Yeah, so I am in Toronto, where I was born and raised. I work as a real estate broker at a firm called Fox Marin Associates in downtown Toronto. Really, what I do is I help my clients buy and sell homes and make the best decisions possible. Um, like Marshall, not a straightforward path. I'm assuming that's probably like Katie as well. Um, Grew up in a musical family, started playing the cello at 5 or 6 years old, and also went to McGill, where I studied with Brian Maker for 4 years. Left that knowing that continuing in music was not what I was going to be doing, but also had no idea what else I was going to be doing. So bounced around retail, bounced around a couple different home building, project managing and building houses for a couple of years, and then kind of tried to combine everything that I knew and started working in real estate.
Thank you so much, Rauben. And what a minefield it is working in real estate in Toronto. So you are one smart
Yes.
cookie. Thank you again for taking the time to chat with us today. Last but not
Yeah,
least,
happy to.
Katie, coming at us from cold, cold Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Thank
Yes.
you so much for being here, Katie. Katie, what is it that you're doing in Saskatoon?
So I am a lawyer at McKercher LLP. I work in mostly insurance defense and health law, but I specialize in privacy law, so I try to do that kind of in any area I can. I live in Saskatoon, but I'm actually from Regina. I grew up probably a block from Amy and went to the same elementary school, high school, everything as Amy. And then I did my undergrad at McGill with Rauben. I also play cello and also studied with Brian Manker, and Amy was at McGill at the same time. Um, Teaching actually. But yeah, and also I mean the same as Marshall and Rauben, not a straight path to law from music, but some twists and winds around the way. But yeah,
Excellent. Okay, so that you all have already alluded to your experience with music here, your intersections, your twists, your paths, and I think this is not uncommon. And I think it's something that we really have the privilege of getting into today, of how music has been a part of your path. And I'd like all of you actually to just take a moment and feel free to jump in. Maybe we'll start just so Marshall doesn't have to start every time. This time we can start with Rauben. But my question for you is, Rauben, you alluded to growing up in a musical family. Maybe if you can talk about why you decided to take that leap into studying music at a post-secondary institution, in this case McGill, and what what factored into that decision, and how music is still part of your life, if it is at all, and just any other intersections you'd like to touch on in terms of your musical experience.
Yeah, so in regards to my kind of background and upbringing, my dad's a violist in the Toronto Symphony. My mom at the time was a music teacher. And so it started naturally. It was okay, you're going to play an instrument. I didn't want to play the violin because my sister played the violin. I didn't want to play the viola because my dad played the viola. So I ended up on the cello. And at that point, kind of going from when you're little, I don't know. I don't know who actually likes practicing that much when they're that young. So it was a battle with my parents on most days. And then there was a little while probably leading up into deciding to go into music that I really wasn't considering it at all until it came time to actually sit down. I think that's probably like halfway through grade 11 and figure out what you're going to do next. And at the time, I guess I probably just wasn't ready for that chapter of my life to be over. And I wasn't forced towards it. My mom wanted me to probably be a lawyer or a doctor or go to business school. Um, and so, anyways, I decided that no, that's not what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to continue my musical education and have that grow. And that's kind of how I ended up at McGill. It was not, even though I grew up surrounded by music, it really wasn't, this is what you have to do. It was figuring out my own path and then deciding that that actually is what I wanted to do at the time.
Thank you so much. Katie, do you want to get into how music shaped your choice to go to McGill first for music, and then perhaps how you came out of that?
yeah, definitely. I mean, my story is very similar to Rauben, honestly. My parents were also both musicians. They met at music school, what is now the BAM Center, and so grew up playing from an early age and played a lot. I played in the Regina Symphony Orchestra in high school. Amy did as well. We played in there together. So my dad is actually principal trumpet in the orchestra. So I, grew up going to work with him, which was cool. But I think my parents were obviously very supportive of me going into music, but my mom was a musician, then did a career change, and so they were both kind of, it can be a tough life. Only do it if if you can't see yourself doing anything. And that was how I felt when I was in high school. Kind of made that decision, same as Rauben, kind of around grade 11. Like, no, I really think I need to do this. But I was lucky because I kind of had that support from my parents saying, if you're super passionate about it right now, pursue it. You're never gonna regret getting an education, and then do something else later. So my mom said, "Hey, I did it. It worked out well for me." She was a librarian, and so I kind of had that background, knowing that you can transition that way. But yeah, made the decision, ended up going to McGill, had the most fantastic time, honestly got such an incredible education, and did other things. I did started a poli-sci minor. I didn't finish it while I was there, but it honestly at that point didn't even cross my mind going to law school. I thought I was going to still continue into music, and it kind of wasn't until I was finishing my degree, figuring out, did I want to audition to do my master's or do it. And it kind of hit that at that point that I was missing Saskatchewan, wanted to come home, and was also dealing with an injury, and just maybe the thought that the music life wasn't for me in the performance sector. So what was I going to do? And then ended up moving home and figuring out that I was going to do either an MBA or something, and landed on kind of a last minute decision on law school, and it's kind of all worked out from there.
Thank you, Katie. Marshall, your turn. What was your musical journey like?
Yeah, so I guess for me, so I picked up tuba not until I was in grade six. I was someone, I think, like many people who go into music, I had just a wonderful music teacher who just was really inspiring, and she helped me like start playing with the community orchestra in Owen Sound, Ontario. So I grew up there weren't any musicians in my family. There weren't any doctors in my family. No, my siblings have gone into healthcare as OTs and paramedics, and they were kind of inspiration for me as I was kind of making my career transition. But at the time, like, yeah, playing tuba with an orchestra just was, it was so fun, and it was something that I just wanted to do more of, and I started studying with Jane Manis, who was in Kitchener at the time. I grew up on a dairy farm, actually, like in Mildmay, Ontario, so sort of between Kitchener and Owen Sound. Um, and I knew when I was choosing to go to university that I wanted to do music. I didn't know what I was going to do afterwards. I really didn't know what was out there in a way. But I knew it was something that I needed to learn more about and really wanted to do. I was always doing science things as well. So my goal when I started university was to do a music degree do like a double bachelor's. I didn't end up finishing that, but I started out like doing a lot of pure like physics stuff at the time as well. So going through like undergrad science courses and math. Um, but really music was my focus in those first 4 years, and then I worked for a few years after my degree, but then the science was always there and something I was still interested in. So I came back, my science degree was still open, and I started doing more biophysics with the intention at that point. Medicine, or honestly, at that time, I was thinking about nursing as well, was a way that I felt would let me to like combine everything I had from music, but then kind of bring that science back into it as well. And so that's kind of part of the transition process for me.
Thank you all for walking us through your own personal stories here. I think there's a lot of people who can relate to your stories. There's also a lot of people who haven't gone down those paths yet and are unsure whether to pick up a tuba as part of their grade six band, or unsure whether to then take the next step to maybe pursue a music degree at a post-secondary institution. So we really appreciate you sharing your own experiences. I want to give you guys a chance this is a rather open-ended question, and we'll kind of see where we take it, but I want to give you a chance to kind of blanket answer in any way that you'd like to how your music education, and that could be as a grade six tuba player, or it could be as a McGill student, you take it where you want. How has it in some way informed what you do now? And if anyone would like to start, I can leave that open, but it's kind of the whole beginning of our big question today, which is where can I go with a music education? What can it lead to? What does it give you that is not necessarily tangible, but is something that is lifelong? And as I say, that doesn't need to be limited to the music degree that all of you have. It could also just be your time. As you said, Marshall, you liked the social element in elementary school. You had a great teacher. I think I remember, well, anyways, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths here, so I'm going to stop talking and just say, does anyone want to start with that big open-ended question? Go for it, Katie.
That is such a tough question to answer because there's so much, but I'll maybe touch on something like a bit practical first, is that I think going into music, I mean, whether you start when you're whatever, 4 or 5, when Rauben and I did, whether you start in grade 6 band, as I know a lot of people do, you're going into university or your education with a certain level of like expertise and maturity. And just practically speaking, no matter what you want to do, you're probably going to have very good grades from your music degree. And I think that kind of comes from just you're not entering university having kind of picked up your trombone or cello for the first time. You've been working at it and kind of have those skills already. So I know for me, that was very helpful practically in terms of getting into law school or, law school, med school. Any of those kind of professional colleges are quite competitive. And so having that edge, practically speaking, can be helpful. On the other side, I think that I would definitely agree with Marshall that the social aspect is something that I really like. And I think no matter what type of musician you are, and not just through a formal education, but you're used to collaborating with people and, playing in different ensembles, different groups, working with some difficult personalities sometimes. And that experience is huge. I mean, for me, day to day, working with clients, with other lawyers, both, as a team in what I do at my firm and with opposing counsel, being able to kind of come at that collaboration from so many different angles is really, really helpful. The last thing I'll say on this is, well, 2 more things, but the another practical thing is that as musicians, we have that kind of work ethic and dedication that, we are used to spending that time in the practice room. And for most musicians who've transitioned onto other careers, I think that really helps. Kind of having that, you're able to kind of sit down for a couple hours at a time and really focus on something. It really helped me during law school. It helps me nowadays, kind of knowing that you have that chunk of time during the day that's your kind of focus time and you're used to putting aside that amount of time every day. If you can transition that into your career, that's so beneficial. Lastly, I think that the whole point of like music is communicating with people, right? And I think that's the majority of what I do in my day to day. I'm a litigator, so I go to court. And so I'm trying to communicate my position to the judge, the other party, communicating to people, whether it's in writing or, through oral advocacy. And I think that experience through a music degree, just trying to figure out how to communicate in different ways, has been the biggest thing, I think, for me, that I kind of have shifted those skills.
Thanks so much, Katie. That is so great to hear that those communication skills have benefits as in your own law practice as well. Rauben, how would you like to jump in?
Yeah, well, I think Katie took all or a lot of really good points that I was going to touch on, but it's so true. I was telling the owner of my brokerage that I was doing this panel today, and the one thing he said to me is, you need to tell them that one of the main reasons that we decided to bring you on is because we figured that if somebody had the ability to sit down and be in a practice room for that many hours a day and to hone their craft that seriously, those skills are transferable, and I don't think you get that from a lot of other areas of study. And so doing it not only in university, but from a young age, you learn how to work really hard. And you learn how to work really hard at one thing. And I think it was Marshall who said, become an expert at that. Or maybe it was Katie. I don't know. One of you said that. But yeah, so that work ethic and that ability to sit down and to grind, I guess, because being a real estate agent, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you have to work very hard. Um, I think that is something that was definitely learned from studying and being in the music world for so long. And then the communication and the collaboration aspect as well. Being in so many different types of ensembles, whether it's yourself in a practice room, whether it's a small ensemble, a quartet, um, mid-size or a big orchestra, it really teaches you different ways to interact within different groups of people. And that's what I have to really figure out and do on a day-to-day basis. A lot of it is, okay, how do I fit in the office? How do I fit in when it's and figure out what I'm doing when it's just me sitting in front of my desk, or different group sizes of clients. And so just being able to communicate and collaborate with different groups and different people, we were exposed to that from a very young age, and doing all of those ensembles that I did from the time I was 5 years old, or I think I was in my first orchestra when I was six. It teaches you a lot.
Thanks so much, Rauben. I'm taking notes. I'm taking that we've got communication skills, we've got social skills, we've got discipline, the ability to work hard. Marshall, feel free to talk about any one of those skills and add to that list.
Yeah, definitely. Um, no, as I was like thinking through what I was wanting to say, I'll piggyback off of what Katie and Ruben have said. I will start with like the collaboration and the communication and the really so as a neurologist, so I currently in my training I'm working in hospitals, so working with very acutely ill people, people who've suffered strokes or are experiencing seizures or other things. I'm also working in the clinics, doing more long-term cares, people affected by dementia, by Parkinson's disease, a really wide range. But and it's I guess when I started medical school. I didn't necessarily I didn't know what a neurologist did or was. I had never interacted with a neurologist before. Um, but what drew me to it was the communication aspect of things. And because for when the brain is involved, like often like language and communication are majorly impacted by the disease. And so kind of finding ways to still communicate and to be able to assess like what is the level of communication that I can interact with this patient, and then also with their family members, with the other team members in the care team, um, and kind of I guess I think of it as like a collaborative listening exercise, which is exactly what we're doing when we're studying music. Your yes, the work ethic definitely is there to like know that you are bringing your best to the room, but then kind of through any patient interaction, like trying to understand what is someone trying to say, really understanding what they're experiencing, but then also what their fears are, what their understanding is about what's going on, and then every patient is different. And so I might have sort of the same things I need to say, but the way that I go about saying them kind of changes based on who I'm talking with and who else is there. And so I think that that was the big thing that tracked for me from my music education all the way through to what I'm doing now. Um, I think one thing I'll add to that is also, I think, just sort of being present, like taking the time, being in the moment, is very important in what I'm doing now, and was something that I worked on. I wasn't always necessarily, I guess, aware of it, that that's what I was doing when I was studying music, but I do remember like being taught and learning that the most likely time I was going to make a mistake in a performance or something was right after I had like done a great job on a solo or a big run that I'd worked really hard on. And so like kind of staying in the moment, you know, as a doctor, we're dealing with difficult things, and we're dealing with different people throughout the day. And so like taking a moment to be present, reorient myself, bring that bring that to each interaction, essentially, I think was also something that really grew out of learning tuba. And so, which again, going into tuba, I never would have thought that's what I'd be saying 10 years later, but here I am. And so,
Thank you so much. I want to pause and just give a quick housekeeping reminder to everyone here who is in attendance for the webinar. If you have a question for any one of these three wonderful panelists here, please use the box at the bottom that is a Q&A box. Please do not put questions in the chat if they are for the panelists specifically. Those should go into the Q&A box, and we will leave time at the end of our discussion here today to answer your own questions. So there are a few things that all three of you touched on that I'd like to dig deeper into, if that's okay with you. The first one is this idea of collaboration, and specifically in ensembles. And it just so happens that our partner for this whole series is none other than NYO Canada. And that is an orchestral ensemble that is geared towards young musicians in Canada. And whether it's about your involvement in that ensemble or just any ensemble, it doesn't need to be an orchestra. It could be also playing in chamber music, or it could be something else that I'm not listing right now. Again, it doesn't need to be also as part of your music degree, but I would love for you to talk about what you've learned through ensemble work, whether it's in elementary, high school music training, music education, if you will, or as part of your music degree. I know you already talked about this collaborative aspect, but I also would love for you to think about and let us in on your thoughts on why playing in an ensemble is just important for one's social growth. What does that do to a person, even if they are not going into music, even if they know they don't want to be a professional musician? What is important about one's social growth for by performing or playing, interacting with others in music? And again, I'm going to let anyone jump in here if you have a quick response to that. Otherwise, I'm also happy to navigate.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I performing, I played in a lot of different orchestras, but I think that NYO was probably the most incredible experience for me. And a lot of it is just meeting a bunch of new people and getting to know and interacting with people that you would normally, not meet or interact with. And I mean, I think kind of opening your social circle to people that you would not, maybe perhaps not normally gravitate to. That I think part of music education, and whether that be your degree or playing in orchestras, is a lot of it is life experience, and having that, you're meeting people from different cultures, different backgrounds, not just in your kind of everyday bubble. And you learn a lot from that. Like I've met so many interesting people and have so many incredible friends that if I, was living my day-to-day life in my neighborhood and going to work, I'm not sure I would ever meet. And you make friends and learn how to communicate and work with people that are very different from you. Um, I think that's been the biggest thing, that I've just met incredible people that I don't know I would ever come across if I hadn't been kind of put together with them in an ensemble. And people, like, I have friends across the country. I have friends from different countries, not just from NYO, but from other summer programs and stuff that I've kept in touch with, and that, have either moved on to other things or musicians, and you just, you're building your network. And that's so important. Meeting people, interacting with people, but just kind of building your network that way.
Thank you. I love that idea of meeting people outside of your own bubble. And I love that music can be a catalyst for that. Marshall or Rauben,
Uh,
go for
I
it.
think thinking about like ensemble work, both chamber ensembles and orchestra, I think Katie said it's like good life experience. I think it's good. It's really good work experience. Like if you thinking back to the quintets that I played with through university, but then also I was involved in like trying to set up a quintet when I lived in Toronto for a year. Um, but just like the whole process of starting a musical group and trying to rehearse, get everybody together. You learn about the importance of being there, being present. You have to show up. If in a group of five, if someone misses the rehearsal, there's really you can't really make it work if people are missing rehearsal. So you're learning to be dependable. You're learning like all the different aspects of promotion of the concerts, like how to organize, how to book a space, how to um, like just logistics of getting people and instruments moving around. So in that sense, I think like working in ensembles I think those are very transferable skills just to whatever you're going on to do. I guess to how that applies to like my job now, like in medicine, there's always room for like new creative ways of providing care and like setting up just systems or pathways for people to make sure that they're getting timely care, to make sure that, and so those types of skills of just how who do we need to work with, like how can we solve this problem, I think is those types of skills are very much built in an ensemble environment as well. It's not just sitting in your practice room making sure your own part is good. It's how are we doing this together? And I remember actually going back again to, yeah, this was elementary school, that my first music teacher who said music is the only time of the day when you're in school where everybody is sitting down and doing something together. Like in math class, everybody's doing their math problems, but they're doing them all individually. I'm sure that likely there wasn't as much drama or the other, like there wasn't as much drama in my elementary school. Like that would be another place where I think that would apply. But music really was unique and is unique in that sense that everybody is doing the same thing together at the same time. So just
Thanks,
thought.
Marshall. Teamwork. Rauben.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of good points that both Marshall and Katie made there. Specific to what Marshall said about scheduling and timeliness, it may sound not so exciting or not that impressive, but one of the best parts of what I do is when I impeccably time out like a 6 stop, 8 stop tour, and we like all over the city, and we get to every place exactly on time because I mapped out traffic and this and that. Um, it's really useful and definitely learn those skills um, from participating in ensembles. And then I guess also in terms of kind of interacting and being in, let's say, an orchestra, not only do you meet a lot of really good people, but you kind of figure out, especially when you're starting at a younger age, how to interact within a group and how to kind of find yourself and figure out where you are and where you can kind of weave your path both individually and with other people, whether it's in your section or the larger orchestra. And like Katie said, meeting people like, I don't know if maybe your high school has a strings class and a band class, but then an orchestra, it's all together and you wouldn't necessarily know the tuba player. And you'd only hang out with the cellists. Yeah, it's really good for just helping, especially more youthful people kind of form their path and figure their way out and through their teen and early 20 years.
Thanks, Ruben. So we've talked a lot about these very tangible, soft skills, if you will, of learning how to, work with people, teamwork, communicate, collaborate, be disciplined. Here's one I'm gonna throw in there, and I'm curious how you use your creative skills in the work that you do today. The reason I'm asking that, or it doesn't even need to be in the work you do today, but just you feel like you are a fuller human being because you have these creative skills from your music education. Now, part of the reason why I'm asking that is because there's so many experiences for young people, especially if we're talking in elementary school, of things that they can get into, right? They can be on a math team, they can be on a sports team, they can be in a band, and often not all of those allow time for everything else. And I am certainly not someone to say that you have to choose one and stick with it. Um, but my question for you is, what specifically about music education, or you could apply this to all arts, let's say fine arts education, that creative element that, let's say, you don't have at least as explicitly by being on a basketball team, but about making music, whether it's with others or with just yourself, the creative element, how has that translated? How has that helped? How has that maybe hindered? I don't know. Your adult lives, the work you do, the people that you are now. I know this is kind of a more abstract question, but I do think it's one worth discussing. So, um, Marshall, I don't know if you want to get us started with this one.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Like I was saying in my last one, like that there's always new ways to try to provide care. And so I've been inspired. There's a few doctors that I've got to work with here. Medicine can be siloed. I did choose a specialty, not a general. I'm not a generalist at this point, although that was something that's what I thought I was going to do when I started. But even within the specialty, like there are multiple conditions that people come in with that require the care of different specialists and their generalist and their family doctor. Um, and so I've been able to like observe and participate in some of the like new clinics essentially where the neurologists were saying like, oh, I'm seeing this person. I'm always sending them off to the other doctors and it takes more time. The things get passed around. And so they've actually started doing like joint clinics with the other specialists where they all book their afternoon. Like this is our afternoon to deal with these patients, and they'll meet in the same room at the same time. Everybody will get to meet the patient. They'll kind of be able to come up with a plan on the spot. But that took, I think, a lot of fair. I mean, it's when I say it like that, it sounds relatively straightforward, actually. But I think that actually took some creative thinking on the part of the doctors to set it up to kind of recognize what could be better. And so and how to creatively go about doing that. So that's I guess the first thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about the creative aspect of what I'm doing as a doctor. Um, yeah.
Do you mind me pressing you on that and asking, because I love this idea of not only problem solving, but finding new creative ways to go about doing something that maybe has been done before, but there are other ways,
Yeah.
alternative ways. When you were referring to before, when you're working with patients, I loved what you said, that you often have to say the same thing to many people, but in different ways,
Yeah.
depending on what their case is, which is exactly the same as, well, for sure, as performers, where we have a piece to play, but the way we're going to introduce it to the audience that we're working with is going to be very different depending on the identity and the background of the audience. You could even argue the way you might play it could be different depending on what you want to bring out. Um, I'm I'm wondering, in terms of the work that you do, specifically working patient to patient as a neurologist, as someone who is finding ways, the best ways of treatment for this patient, and you're constantly having to take all these different factors and information and variables and come out with, you know, your way of moving forward, or treatment plan, whatever that might be. I'm wondering how it might be something that maybe you haven't, I don't know, thought about explicitly, but how that element of creativity, as opposed to just simply, objectivity, fact, uh, retrieval and recognition, but how that creativity plays a part in that part of your work.
Yeah, definitely. That is a big part of what drew me to neurology specifically, is that was there are fields of medicine where things are relatively like, this is what's happened, this is what you do next. It's a more of a straight path, but um I think the big things I think about, and it actually, I mean, it's, you can't extract it from kind of the teamwork aspect, because a lot of these communities are, let's just to stick with communication, we work with occupational therapists, we work with speech language pathologists, and so they have skills that I don't, and understanding that I don't. And so like often it's a really nice part of my job to work with them, to see when people like how to use nonverbal communication and different ways of doing that, and kind of the creative ways that work for that individual. And also, I guess, yeah, I don't have a specific example, but just thinking of when we're, as a doctor, we are sort of getting a sense of what a person's social environment is like, what their home is like, what kind of, if there are barriers there, what are the strengths of their environment, and kind of how to use those. And like, so you're getting to know someone in a fairly brief amount of time, really, in a way, but kind of you maximizing those skills to not just what can I do for you in this half hour that we have together, or this hour, or this 20 minutes, but like, what can I glean from this that I know about you and the rest of your support system to keep things going for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Rauben, I'm going to give you a chance to tell us how your creative skills through music education have assisted you today.
Yeah. When you're working in real estate, you kind of have to do everything. You have to find your clients, you have to market, you have to do work with them, close a deal. Like it's everything. Um, I am really not good, and to be quite frank, not interested in marketing myself. And so with that being said, I joined a brokerage, I joined a firm that takes care of 95% of that for me, knowing that that was not a strong suit of mine, and quite frankly, not something that I wasn't really that interested in. But there is a lot of creativity and really problem solving that goes into the day-to-day of what I do, and specifically in the client interaction. And kind of answering that second question, a little bit of what you asked to Marshall, how I approach a conversation, or how I want choose to display information to a 35-year-old engineer is going to be very different than how I choose to communicate and display information to a retiree who is a teacher, or whatever it may be. Different age groups, different demographics and backgrounds, is really where my creativity and kind of problem solving comes in. Or it's even, how do we, if I'm working with another party, with an agent on the other side, okay, how are we able to work together to come up with a solution that ultimately is beneficial for both parties? Because really, what we are here to do. It's not like you see in TV shows, and it's screaming on the phone and hanging out on the beach. It's really just a lot of problem solving and communication, collaboration, both with our clients, with other agents that goes into what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks so much, Rauben. Katie, I want to give you a chance to answer this question about creativity.
Yeah, I'm busy here. Like I'm taking notes. These guys have such good things to say. I'm like, oh, I should use that. Yeah, I would echo, I mean, both of what Ruben and Marshall said. I think that my entire job is basically problem solving. Like the law isn't black and white. I live in the gray. And so it's a lot of times people coming in, and especially working in litigation, people have a dispute or have an issue, and it's my job to figure out how to solve it. And so I think that, you know, growing up being so involved in music and then being trained in music, I think you've conditioned your brain to kind of explore those creative options and maybe think outside of the box or approach a problem differently than maybe other people have. I think, I mean, especially when I went into law school, I think that as a musician, you have kind of a different outlook on things and a different way of looking at things or perceiving things. And I think that it's a huge skill that, you know, you can kind of take a situation, and I think musicians are great at looking creatively for a solution or trying to figure out different ways to approach it.
Thanks, Katie. I'm actually going to jump into the Q&A because there's actually a specific question for you, Katie, which is
Oh,
kind of tying into exactly what you're already talking about here. This is a question from one of our attendees. They ask, does being a musician help you think like a lawyer? Also, what types of musicians make good lawyers? It's a bit open-ended. I think you can kind of take it where you want with that.
I think that's a great question. Um, Being a musician has definitely helped me, especially as I'm a litigator. As I said, I go to court. And I mean, it's definitely not like what you see on TV. I'm not like living out my life in suits, but there is definitely a performance aspect of it. And while we're sitting here talking, maybe it's just seeing Reuben, but I'm like reflecting back to my final recital and trying to play Bach's Fifth Cello Suite on my recital when it like wasn't quite memorized, but just kind of pulling it out and having the confidence to do that. I think back on that so much. Like if I can do that, I can do anything. But no, just I think having that kind of, you can turn it on. Like we know how to perform, we know how to be focused, we know how to apply all of our hard work to that moment, like whatever the 2 hours you're in court, you're on. You can recall all of your preparation. You can um, really be so laser focused and attuned to everything you're doing. Um, what type of musician makes a good lawyer? I'd say, I mean, I think most musicians are probably the hardest working people out there. So a musician that works hard. I think it's the same with, I'm sure, Ruben and Marshall's career, that you just, in order to be an exceptional lawyer, an exceptional, real estate agent or doctor, like physician, you just really have to work hard. And it's the same with musicians. Like if you're willing to put in the time and the effort, you're gonna likely excel at what you do. And if you're open to, learning different ways, talking to different people, learning from different people, you're going to excel. So I think a musician that kind of is really focused and works hard, that's the exact same thing as what you do in law.
Thank you so much. We've got some really great questions here in the Q&A, so I'm actually going to just jump to that and read out some of them here. This is for any one of you, and in fact, all of you can answer at some point if you'd like. The question is, did any of you ever consider making music part of your new career, whether it be as a music manager or representative, or maybe using music as therapy? So that intersection between health and music, I believe, is what they're referring to. Um, I don't know, Rauben, not to put you on the spot, would you like to, you can just say no if that's the answer, or you can elaborate.
Yeah, I think the answer probably is just no. Um, in what I do, not that I don't enjoy still being involved in music in some aspects. It's just I need to be very focused on what I do, and I don't think that connection would necessarily be there in what I am doing in my day to day right now.
Can I ask you, because I think maybe what this
Yeah,
question is getting at is after you graduated, or maybe in your later years of your music
yeah,
degree,
yeah.
you knew that maybe, okay, I'm not going to become a professional musician, but I'm interested in something that uses other skills, like the skills that you have in terms of administration, in terms of organization, in terms of just like, I mean, you hate marketing, but you're still good at, getting on the right train for that, right? So I think
Yeah.
maybe the question is like, did you ever consider transitioning into, let's say, arts admin or something that allows you to use the skills that are very, hands-on that you're using right now, but are not in music, but within some kind of musical realm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I'll say before I graduated, I knew that I was not going to continue down the music path. Going into my last year of school, I was like, okay, I'm going to finish my degree and then I'm going to figure out what is next. Obviously, I did some thinking in that last year as well. And once I was done with school, yeah, absolutely. Like I was considering, okay, maybe I still want to be involved in this world. Maybe it is arts admin. And to be quite honest, those opportunities were not there. I had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people at various organizations, large and small. And kind of what I said, and this is actually how I got into real estate. I was basically like, I don't really know anything. I will give you everything that I have. I will work for free for X period of time in order to learn. And then maybe something comes out of this down the line. And I had a lot of those conversations with a lot of different arts organizations. And the response that I kind of always got was, that would be great. We just don't have any opportunities available. And we don't have anything like that or even any lower level, entry level jobs that we have that need to be filled. And so I especially even when I was working in retail, I also continued having a lot of those conversations. And yeah, those opportunities just weren't there. And so after a while, I stopped trying to pursue them.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate your honesty in painting that picture because I think that's really really interesting and important. Katie and Marshall, again, I'll repeat the question here if one of you want to jump in. Did any of you ever consider making music part of your new career, whether it be as a music manager, representative, or using music as a therapy? And Marshall, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. Um, I I have not like taken a dive and actually made it a part. It's definitely something in my work. I'm super interested in the fact like with Parkinson's disease that dance and activity and like rhythm can be very helpful or like the role of music and memory. But I am not directly involved in those fields within neurology at this point. Thinking about music therapy, so I'm I didn't become a music therapist, but I do know a few people who went into that, and actually one of our pardon me, one of our good friends here, she's actually also teaches our kids piano and violin, but she's also an NYO alum. Her name's Nadia Petru, and she is a music therapist here in Vancouver. and loves her job. And like it's so interesting to hear what she does with kids and for kids, with that background. So that's, and I guess before Katie goes in, I don't know if Katie, I'm excited to hear what your answer to this question is. I do know one of my friends from undergrad is now like an intellectual property lawyer in San Francisco, where he came from, and so I know one other person who has taken law and like incorporated that aspect of their music background into their law career as well.
Thanks, Marshall. Katie, if you have anything you want to say to that.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, just briefly, that was my plan after music school. I was like, oh, I think I want to transition to the other side and maybe do arts admin. I was looking at an MBA and eventually decided on law school. Thought I could do a lot with a law degree, but it was, I mean, a week into, I never thought I would practice law. I didn't see that for myself at all. I thought it was quite boring, actually. And then I got into law school and started doing it and just absolutely got hooked. So that was my first kind of, oh, I'll work in arts admin. I would love to be involved in that way. And so obviously I mean, do that as part of my work, but I think that as a lawyer, there are so many opportunities. Like I'm on the board of Sask Music, on the board of directors. There's lots of opportunities to sit on boards and be involved in that kind of stuff, just kind of on the side or as part of my community involvement. So still kind of keeping in touch with that side, but not doing it as part of my career.
Thanks so much. These are all great answers, and I think also really enlightening in terms of just like what your thought processes were. We're gonna go in that direction with a really simple question, but a great question from the Q&A. Your thought processes between finishing your music degree and going in a different direction, non-music related. The question is simply, was it scary switching life paths from musicianship, from making music basically be your full-time thing to making it not be your full-time thing? I know it's still a part of all your lives and we can get to that in some way, but that switch, was that scary? And maybe if you want to talk about what that looked like, go for it. But the question is just, was it scary switching life paths?
I,
Marcia?
I mean,
Oh, no, go for it,
oh,
Katie.
sorry. I don't want to jump in, but like, yeah, it was probably the scariest thing I've done. And it made me really sad, to be honest, because I didn't know, I mean, to what extent I would be involved in music. And now I think I found a great balance, but it was really scary. It's tough when you've been involved in something for so long and really like excelled at something and feeling like, you're at the top of your field to starting over and starting something you're not good at. It was really scary. Was it worth it? 100% for me, but yeah, it's really tough. Yeah, and just leaving that community too. I mean, I think we all, at to some extent, grew up in a music community, and it's such a special, strong community that having the idea of leaving that and trying to like introduce yourself to a new community, very scary. Worth it, but scary.
Thank you. I'm trying to see who's ready. Reuben.
I'll mimic Katie in that, well, in half of what she said. I didn't personally, I didn't find it to be scary because I knew that that chapter of my life was going to be over, and I was okay with that. But I would say what Katie said, it was definitely sad. There's definitely something that there are a lot of emotions involved, and you do this for so long, so intensely, and then all of a sudden you're not doing it anymore. So not so much scary on my end, but definitely emotional, I would say.
Thanks, Reuben. Marshall, anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, for me it was a scary process as well, like Katie. Because we like I at that point I had put many years into like excelling and exploring different areas of music as well. I did do some arts admin work. But I think what part of my thought process at the time was that I did always have this love of science, and like there was something else calling me still at that time. I think kind of how I dealt, and like certainly having the idea to go into medicine, like there were no guarantees for me at any step along the way, and so I guess the way I had a lot of support. Like my parents were very supportive. Like my wife has been so supportive this whole time as well. We had already had our first kid at the time, and so I made multiple plan Bs and Cs and Ds. And like if medicine didn't work out, I was going to go into nursing or come back to music if that was an opportunity that presented itself. So. Yeah, I think that's how I dealt with the uncertainty during the transition was like trying to have multiple different options that like if something whatever path happens like it was kind of in a way like which door opened at which time. And so I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to go into medical school, but like there are multiple different past versions of my lives where I would be doing something completely different, I'm sure.
Oh, this is so interesting. And I'm gonna just segue this into a question that talks about what you were just saying, Marshall. This is another question from an attendee. He's or they say, I'm thinking about making a transition into a different career. What's a good way to find out what else I'm interested in besides music to pursue as a different career? So this whole idea of, okay, you know you love music, you have this feeling that for whatever reason, you want to do something else. What's a good way to figure out what that something else might be? And feel free to just also, talk about your own journey with that, because I'm sure there's no one solution to this. Um,
I'll
yeah,
start.
go for it, Marshall.
And then I think just talking to people, trying things out, like getting hands-on experience. I mentioned previously, like I was inspired by my siblings. Like one of my I've got a brother who's a paramedic and a sister who's an occupational therapist, and so chatting with them about the work that they do. And I guess in a way, kind of that path for me, I had those interests as well in the sciences in medicine. So like kind of assessing what else drew me, what else I guess yeah, what seemed interesting, I guess, was how I went about it. I didn't Many people do lots of shadowing and things. I didn't do so much shadowing before going into medicine. But that's certainly an option if you can find people to connect with.
Thanks, Marshall. Reuben, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Honestly, no. I think Marsh kind of hit on a lot of points. I think it really is just talking to as many different people as possible and trying out different things. And personally, I was lucky. It sounds like Marshall did that maybe 5 or 10 years after I did, having a kid when he started in medicine. But I was fortunate to have support of my parents, and I finished school and I moved back home and I was living rent free. And so being at an age where I could do that, and that allowed me to try a whole bunch of different things and figure out what I was going to do next, um, was, in my case, necessary.
Thanks, Reuben. Katie, any advice?
I mean, both of those are that's really great advice. I think the only thing that I would add is just think about think about what you're good at. Like, what are your skills? And also, what do you want your life to look like? Do you like the kind of hustle and bustle of being a musician and, maybe teaching and doing a couple different things? Or do you really just want, a more kind of steady, stable thing? Like, what do you want your lifestyle to look like? For me, I couldn't imagine having a job where I didn't really interact with people. Like, that was huge for me. I'm so extroverted. I love the social part of being a musician. I also loved, the fact that as a musician, you're never doing the same thing every day. Like boredom is huge for me. That is my biggest nightmare. So think about what you want out of your career. Do you want something where every day is different, where you're always learning? Do you want something where, you'd really be comfortable working in an office, or do you want something where you're kind of out all day meeting with people? Just think about your skills, not only as a musician, but just like your personality, what things you think you could be good at, and kind of do some research to figure out what might fit what you'd like your life to look like.
Amazing advice. Thank you all. This is the last question about kind of the transition between music major to non-music career. This question is directed specifically at Marshall and Katie, but Rauben, I want to open it up to you too in terms of like what extra training did you require? So the question is, did you have to take additional courses, such as some science courses for Marshall, which I know, Marshall, you already talked about your physics courses, but I'm assuming you needed a bit more before you could become a neurologist. But did you have to take additional courses to bridge to medical or law school or to becoming a realtor? So if you could just walk us through, for all of us who are not doctors, realtors, and lawyers, what that process looked like once you had, let's say, you have a bachelor's degree in music. What do you now need in order to do what you do?
I'm happy to jump in. Yes, for medicine at least, I did end up going back to school. I had many of the prerequisites from the courses that I cobbled together in my first 4 years of undergrad. But I think I was mentioning kind of my plan B's and C's and things. So I did end up going back and starting on the path towards finishing a second bachelor's. I ended up getting into medical school before that was done, and so didn't finish it. But um, certainly, yes, kind of having just those prerequisites to write the MCAT and do those other things. I will say, when I got into med school, again, not that I would have changed anything necessarily, but seeing the folks, like 90% of the class were people who had done sort of physiology as their main thing, or biochemistry, that kind of thing. Like they had a lot more just experience looking with the basic anatomy and things. Like those were things I had to learn. We had courses to teach us those things, but when I got there, that was definitely a weaker spot for me, having not having done those things before. Um, but that was essentially the only sort of formal thing that I needed before making the transition. And so,
Thanks, Marshall. Katie.
So I think the really cool thing about law school, if you want to be a lawyer, is that there's no prerequisite. Most people, just because it's pretty competitive to get in, you need a bachelor degree. You technically can get in with 2 or 3 years of an undergrad, but it makes it tougher to do so. But all you need are basically your grades, and then you need to write an exam called the LSAT. And that takes a bit of studying. Some people study for longer, take it a couple times, but that's the only thing. But that was a really cool thing about law school, is I think there's kind of a preconception that you need to have, a poli-sci or a pre-law degree. But I think that's the coolest thing about law school, is that you can really have any background degree and go to law school and be just as qualified as everyone else. Everybody starts from zero. So that was the only thing, writing the LSAT, and then going to law school. Law school is 3 years, and then you do 1 year of what's called articling. So you're essentially like a baby lawyer. Like you can't go to court by yourself and stuff like that. And you learn a lot during that year. And then depends where you are. You either write the bar, or in Saskatchewan, it's a series of modules and stuff you go to, and then you're a lawyer. But so it is a couple years after, but I was just as qualified to go to law school with a music degree as someone who had a, econ poli-sci degree.
Thanks, Katie. And I'm curious, Rauben, what did you have to do to become a realtor after graduating with a music degree?
So, and I'll try not to go on a tangent about what's wrong with the real estate industry, but it's way too easy to become a real estate agent. It just is. You don't need any degree at all. You can do it with a high school diploma. If you don't have a high school diploma, you can take a proficiency test, and that would allow you to take a series of online courses. I think there are 5 or 6 of them, um, that you're just sitting down at your computer, and then you go through them, and at the end of each course there's a test that you have to take, and I think you need 75% to pass and move on to the next one. And to be quite honest, you don't learn a whole lot by taking those courses. And so I think real estate should be a lot more like what being a lawyer is. And I think that there should probably be a articling period or something like that. And that's actually what I ended up kind of doing, because I came out and I was like, okay, I don't actually know how to be a real estate agent. Sure, I know what some forms look like and I can explain them a little bit, but if I had a client, one, how do I get a client? Two, how do I, once I have a client, what do I do? I don't know. None of that was taught to us. And so essentially I did. I went from that, and then I joined the brokerage that I'm still at now. And like I said earlier, when I said I explored arts on men, I kind of said, hey, look, I will do anything. Like, here is my time. Um, I want to learn, so teach me. And that was very beneficial for me. I'm sure it was somewhat beneficial for them as well. And I think it's really why I have been able to do what I'm doing now, because the barrier to entry to real estate is very, very low.
That's super interesting, Rauben. Thank you so much. Yeah, it really helps to see how these journeys actually take place, what they actually look like, not just kind of pie in the sky. Oh, what if? It's really interesting to hear all three of your stories this way. Okay, so getting back to kind of the music education role in your life. This is a question from Sharon McCleve, and actually, this is a two-part question. She says, first of all, thank you for sharing your important thoughts, panelists. I enjoyed your input very much. 2 questions. I appreciate how music education supported your non-music career trajectories, but could you have succeeded in your careers without music? In other words, did music give you your current opportunities, or did it merely support you in the development of transferable skills? Then the second question is a fun one that frankly a lot of people in the Q&A have. Do you still engage in musicking activities as a hobby? Thanks again. Who would like to start this one? Katie, I see you reaching.
Sure, I'll start us off. That's such a. I'm trying to think if I would. I don't think I would be here if I didn't do a music degree. I'm not sure. Maybe I would have ended up in law somewhere, but I honestly don't know what I would have done my undergrad in, and if it would have led the kind of same path that I had. I just honestly don't see my life working out another way. Like I couldn't imagine giving up cello and music at that time and not doing it. So I don't know, and I don't know if I would have done, an English degree or something if I would have been as successful and had that kind of force to drive me forward. So I would say no, but maybe I would be doing something else. But and then to the second part of it, the second part was if we still play. Honestly, not as much as I'd like to. I'm gonna be honest. It's really hard with my schedule. I've been trying to start playing again with the Saskatoon Symphony, and I'm finding it very difficult with my current career to balance that with rehearsals and stuff. So not as much as I'd like to, but also to be 100% honest, like Reuben said, it kind of makes me sad. Like we play at such a high level and dedicate so much time to it. And you know, when I do play, I'm not as in shape. Like I haven't been on the practice grind. Um, but I also just I think I'm still coming to terms with having it be um, kind of a side part of my life. My husband actually is also a lawyer, but he is an incredible fiddler. And I admire him so much because he really does it as a hobby. He goes and he plays with his friends in like retirement homes and stuff, and he loves it. And it's such a positive hobby for him. And so I think my goal would to get back to that place where cello is kind of a positive thing that I can accept that I'm not playing at the level that I was before, but that it's just something that I can integrate back into my life. So that's the goal. I'm working on it.
Thank you so much, Katie. I know that you have a presence with your musical abilities, even if you don't know it, just from my friends and family who live in Saskatoon. So keep up the great work. Um, I want to give Marshall or Ruben a chance for you to answer either or both of Sharon's questions there. Let me know if you can't see them, but I can also repeat them as well. Um,
I guess my thoughts, if I can go ahead, Ruben, are actually very similar to Katie's when I heard you kind of answer that question. Like, I think in general, certainly there are many people who go into medicine without a music degree, but for me personally, would I have ever landed in the same place? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think I was, well, I think what another sort of thing that I didn't expect or wasn't looking for from my music training was kind of like the emotional side of things, like understanding understanding myself, understanding those emotions, and kind of being able to use those now in my work and kind of bring that to the table. I think if I had just done a science degree, I don't know that I would have kind of expanded that part of myself. And likely, who know? I don't know where where I would have gone after if I hadn't had my music degree. So I would do the same thing over and over again. Like I would. That was the best choice for me, and I think still remains kind of my way I would choose to do things. Um, yeah, then like Katie, I don't play as much certainly as I maybe thought I might. Certainly, I do hope to in the future as well. Like kind of going through the training process still, there's a lot of demands on my time. We've got two young kids. Um, I'm definitely getting like music in many different ways of my life. It's just not me performing. And so it's like kind of playing with the kids as they're going through their lessons, doing like again, very like mini jam sessions with them and like but I think the other to come back to like the social aspect, like I've got like Katie said, I've got many different friends like from across Canada. So like everywhere we have lived, we have known some of our music friends. And so the option is there to go and to play, but it's just not where I'm at right now. And so
Well, I also want to point out that Sharon uses this, not to put on my academic hat here, but Christopher Small's term of musicking as opposed to just performing, which, as you alluded to, Marshall, that means anything. That means just like singing songs with your kids. It means listening to music. It means engaging in music in any way, shape, or form. And so, thank you for giving us a few of those examples. Ruben, you have the floor for Sharon's two questions.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, who knows what I'd be doing right now if I didn't kind of start in this path and get a music degree. Um, I might be in a completely different place, but it was definitely beneficial. And I'll even say the office that I'm in, we're a very small office, and performing and being artistic is in almost everybody's DNA who's in my office. Like there's myself, there are highly trained dancers, there are theater majors, there are Division I athletes, and like all of that kind of has the common theme of being able to perform at a high level. And so it's definitely been beneficial. And I probably would not be as good as what I do if I did not have that um, musical background, be it formal or not. In terms of do I play, you might be able to see my cello case peeking out behind me. It probably hasn't been opened in 2 or 3 months. Um, but every once in a while, whenever I have some spare time, I crack it open. Um, but yeah, it's I think I when I finished school, I wasn't interested in playing at all. I don't know if I opened my case for a year or more. And then slowly I started a little bit again, but like both Marshall and Katie, schedules are not always permitting of that, and I'd love to do a little bit more, but I just don't, unfortunately.
Well, you all have been such wonderful panelists, not only in just the breadth of information and the interesting anecdotes and specificity in detail. Sorry, I can't talk anymore. But also just your personal testimonials and your honesty, and it is so appreciated. I want to just leave today with the chance to say like one quick piece of advice to anyone who is thinking in engaging in music in some way. Why should they do it? Now, this is very open-ended and vague on purpose because I don't mean why should they go pursue a music degree. I mean, why should they, whatever stage they're at in their own relationship with music, why should they sign on to that school band in grade 6? Why should they test out a jazz band in high school? Why should they take that next step and become a music major in university? Why should they take a different step and just become someone that has music as a hobby? So this is very open-ended, but why is music a good thing to have in one's life? Or what kind of advice would you say to someone who is perhaps second guessing the importance of a music education, if you will? I'm going to give you guys a chance to think about that. In the meantime, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. Long and McQuaid is our one of our presenting sponsors, as well as our whole webinar sponsor, NYO Canada. Thank you so much for your support. I also want to give a reminder of the upcoming webinars that are happening next Saturday and the following Saturday. Next Saturday, we have session 2, which is called Musical Entrepreneurship, Building Your Own Projects and Organizations. These will be featuring Michael Bridge, Miki Sawada, and Arya Umazawa. That will be on February 1st, same time, same place. By the way, you do not need to register again for the Zoom. You can use the exact same link that you used today to access future webinars. On February 8th, we have our last webinar, and it is called A Day in the Life, Navigating the Demands of a Music Career. This is with Philip Chu, Adam Ciccoletti, and I believe, well, our third guest is a best kept secret, but it will be promoted shortly. So I'll leave that to you to watch for that news. But I want to thank everyone for attending here today. A huge thank you to our panelists. And if we could just end the session by saying, why music? Katie, can I start with you?
Absolutely. I will be brief. Do it because it's good for you. I'm not the physician on the panel, but I think that like music is good for you. It's good for your brain. It's good for your soul. It's good for your mental health. I think that, I mean, we're all here and watching this webinar because we love music in some way. So do stuff that makes you happy, whether that's listening to music, performing, pursuing it as a career. It's just, it makes you a better person. Yeah, do it because it's good for you.
Thanks, Katie. Moving on to Rauben next.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you a nice and well-rounded person, I think, and it's enjoyable, and sometimes it's not, but it teaches you a lot, and I don't think any of us would be here today if it wasn't for our music education, and so uh, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Rauben. Last but not least, Marshall.
Thanks everyone. I was gonna say do it because it's fun. Yeah, and definitely yes, I support very much, Katie, that music is good and healthy for you.
The non-doctors
Uh,
say good, do it for your
yeah,
health. The doctor says just do it because it's fun, guys.
yeah.
I love it. Thank you all for being here today. Again, our website is in the chat if you need it. It is simply wherecanigowithmusic.com for details. You can look up these panelists. Their bios are there, as well as some beautiful headshots if you forget what they look like. So anyways, check it out. Come to our panels next 2 Saturdays from now. And again, a big thank you to Katie, Rauben, and Marshall for being here today. Really appreciate these insights. I think we're all very energized from this discussion. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks everyone. Great to meet you all.